Hello everyone, this is Gary from Fantastic Fundas, and today in this lecture we are going to talk about extreme communalism. Now, like always, we will first discuss the background of this lecture, and for this I hope you did listen to the earlier lectures on liberal communalism. The phase of liberal communalism that lasted till 1937. Do you recall what happened in 1937 that changed the course of Indian modern history? If you recall it, that's very good. The correct answer would be it was the elections in which Congress won, and we have done 2 lectures on this very topic earlier. Now, how can elections lead to communalism? Well, it happens even today. You can see in the contemporary aspect of it. For example, if one party loses, it can provoke, it can accuse the winning party of having religious bias or using communalism, or they can indulge into communalism. Somebody can start the riots because nobody wants to lose the election, and same was the case here. And actually it is the urge for the power, it is the who holds the controls the country, who, and how do you control the country through the power which you get through winning the elections. So ultimately it boils down to just this thing, and that is why we will see this shift from liberal communalism to extreme form of communalism. So we will be discussing this topic about a little bit about the elections, that who lost, who won in the elections, because we need to know that who moved to communalism and who didn't. And then we will also talk about the reasons for which these people moved to communalism other than this political power. So now let's talk about the 1937 elections and who lost and who won there. When we talk about the 1937 elections, you need to understand the context, the philosophy on the basis of which these elections were fought, because ultimately we want to understand that how they led to communalism. And one of the bases was hatred and irrationality. You see, if you write these words in your exam, the teacher will get to know that you understand the detailed nuances and that you have read the modern history properly. So do mention such small things. And these elections were fought on the basis of the separate electorates. We have already discussed about how separate electorates were given to various people. And the people who voted in these elections, it's not that it was universal franchise. By universal franchise, I mean that not everyone can vote. Only few people had the vote, and thus it was called as a restricted franchise. And when you have restricted people only to vote, you can also imagine the results would also vary as per the people who get the right to vote. And what was the result of these elections in the at the seats which were reserved for minorities? Congress could not win many seats. In fact, Congress won just 26 seats out of 482 seats that were reserved. Now, you see, you don't have to remember this number, just remember what happened, that Congress won very few seats out of all the 482 seats reserved for Muslims, and even out of these 26 seats, 15 seats were won out from the Northwestern Frontier Province, NWFP. Now, at the same time, Muslim League also could not win many seats, and since Muslim League could not get as many seats as they wanted, so the head of the Muslim League will get angry. And who is this head of the Muslim League here? He is Jinnah. For all practical purposes, he is leading Muslim League, and he will now get angry. How will his anger will result into the division of country? That is the topic we will be discussing in this lecture in just few minutes. Now, an obvious question that comes to mind, that why Congress won only 26 seats out of 482 in these minority areas. The answer is little technical, and the answer is that Congress, when it was fighting, if you remember that lecture on the 1937 elections that we did, Congress had adopted a radical agrarian program in its manifesto. It talked about that how it is going to bring those changes. And when you bring change in the agriculture and when you support the farmer, the peasant, who will be the worst sufferer? Who will suffer because of such a good thing? It will be the landlord, or we can say the zamindar, the money lender. These people will suffer. And when these people suffer, what will they do? They will shift their support from Congress to the opposition. And who is sitting in opposition to Congress? The communal parties are sitting there. And this is primarily the reason why Congress lost, and all these communal parties could win at these seats reserved for the Muslims. So this was about the 1937 elections. Now, there are two topics that emerge from this particular one, and those are, one is the topic on Jinnah, that who is this Jinnah and what is he up to. We will talk in detail about Jinnah, and before that I will like to talk to you that how after these elections, the liberal communalism is changing into extreme form of communalism, extreme communalism. That is the topic of the lecture. The first reason I've already discussed with you, and that is the coming of the communalist powers, communalists in the power by winning the elections, especially against the Congress, and that almost all the 482 seats that were reserved for the Muslims and other on the basis of religion, all those went to the communalist. That's reason number one. Number two is, again we have discussed, you see, I don't want you to memorize things. That is a poor way of learning. I want you to just sit down and think over what can be the reasons that communalism will shift from liberal to extreme form. UPSC especially is looking for such candidates who have this analytical ability. So the second reason that we see for shifting from liberal to extreme form of communalism is the British policy of divide and rule. And why did British follow this policy? Because their almost every other policy had failed by now. They had to do something. For example, that the temple entry bill, that issue was over now, and by now even the backward classes, they were in support of the Congress. And all these backward classes, especially after the Pune Pact, if you recall that from one of the earlier lectures, Pune Pact, Poona, these people started supporting Congress. So these people also could not be put in opposition to the Congress. So basically, Congress could not be attacked by the Britishers, neither through this untouchability, neither this backward class thing. And Congress refused to split on the basis of the right versus left. Because now we had the experience of the past. If you remember, Surat split. After that, there came many occasions where we could have split and the movement would have fizzled out, but it did not happen. So Britishers had to do something, and their focus now, which they understood, was divide and rule, and which does ultimately lead to the partition of India. Now, whenever a question comes to you regarding the partition of India, can you imagine most of the people, what they will do? They will write a very short answer that it was the Royal Indian Navy, the RIN revolt, or it was the some other incident, or the 14 August, the direct action day that led to partition. But the events can be traced back right from here, and even before this, right from where the separate electorate started and the divide and rule policy of the Britishers started. So whenever you write an answer, write a holistic answer, it should cover a larger time period, that will give you more marks. And how did Britishers follow this divide and rule policy? It was very easy. You see, I just told you that Mr. Jinnah had lost elections, and he was not happy. Basically, when I say Mr. Jinnah had lost election, I mean Muslim League could not get many seats, and because of this he is angry, and now he has nobody to rule upon. So here comes the savior, the Britishers, the great Britishers come and support Jinnah against the Congress. That is basically a ploy for pursuing their divide and rule policy. And there is one more reason. Jinnah had great oratory skills. He was a very good speaker, and Britishers were also scared of him, that this man can create a lot of problem for them if he is let free, and if he starts speaking against the colonialism in support of the nationalism, that he can create problems. So this became one of the reasons. Let's move to reason number 3, and this is the World War II. Whenever you think of any question that involves the decades of 1930s and the 1940s, you just cannot ignore World War II, especially in history. And of course, it had impact on economy, on sociology, every subject. You must include this in your answers everywhere. So what happened, that the World War that had started on 1st September 1939, the war ended in 1945, and when the war ended, now Congress said that Britishers should make a declaration, that before the war ended, that the Britishers should make a declaration that once the war is over, India will be given complete freedom. And why were we seeking this from Britishers? Because Britishers were looking for support from Indians, because Hitler was growing very strong, and Britishers feared that they just might lose to Hitler, and they could not have won the war without the support of Indians. We will be discussing this aspect in the World History Lecture series also. So they were looking for this declaration, but Britishers were very clever here. They said that okay, we will give we will agree to you, let's see, but before that, Hindus and Muslims in India must unite. Now don't be fooled by this good face of the Britishers that they are looking for Hindu-Muslim unity. They are very clever, because they knew that is never going to happen. Why? Because at the same time they said that any demand that goes against the interest of the Muslim could be vetoed by them. Anything which goes against the interest of Muslims, they can veto that demand. By veto, I mean they can cancel it out completely as they wanted. Now, who is leading the Muslims? Mr. Jinnah is leading the Muslims. We already know this from point number 2. That means this conciliation between Hindus and Muslims was, first of all, it was made impossible by the Britishers, and then it was made a condition to be united. Only then the Britishers could come up with a conclusion. And in this process, while pursuing their own interest, Britishers had promoted secular communalism in India. Now, number 4 is the elections of 1937. Of course, that's an important point, because of which the extreme communalism started. One noticeable feature of these elections was that these Hindu Mahasabha and Muslim League, all these people were campaigning for the elections on communal lines. So that created again communal problem. Now when they failed in elections, these people failed miserably. Hindu Mahasabha, Muslim League, Congress, all these people failed. Other communalists won. Now these people thought that they would wither away, because now they are not in the power. They have to do something. So they thought that better we shift to militant mass-based politics. Right. So they shifted their base towards communalism, and that of course led to communalism in this, the shift from liberal to the extreme phase, because of elections at this time. One good thing that happened at this time was that Congress saw this as an opportunity to woo the Muslims under Jawaharlal Nehru, and that is why they started Muslim mass contact program at this time. This can be a question in your prelim examination, that when did the Congress start. Now if you remember the context, it will be very easy for you to recall this. You don't have to do the rote learning here, just correlate the facts, just listen to the story carefully and you will be done with the prelim exam very easily. So these were the 4 reasons. Now I can actually add up one more reason for the spread of this shift of liberal to extreme communalism. Number 5, I changed the color for sake of visibility here, is acceptance of the communal demands. And you know this, right? In 1920 we accepted their communal demands, then in 1932 there came communal award, and then in 1935 came the Government of India Act, which of course had expanded the religion based electorates. So that all led to communalism, and Congress never opposed here the concessions that were being given wrongly to the Muslims here. So Congress was at fault here. It should not have done this, right? Now once communal demands were met, political organization, you see, they either had to dissolve or they had to discover the new demands. Now after these demands of the communals were accepted, they raised the newer demands, and when new demands are raised, there is more demands for on the communal lines only, and this is endless thing to happen. And that is why to end communalism you have to suppress it right from the beginning. You just cannot continue doing that, pacifying. That is why the pacifying politics is criticized even in the modern day polity. Now these were the few reasons because of which there was this shift. This can be an independent question also, that or discuss how or give the reasons for which the communalism in India shifted from liberal to the extreme form. Or if there is a question like discuss the rise of communalism in India, even then you will need to discuss all these factors that I have just discussed with you. Moving ahead, in the beginning of the lecture I told you I'll be talking about Jinnah. So let's talk in detail about who was M.A. Jinnah, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, and how was he a nationalist? Did he contribute to India's freedom struggle? These are the few questions for you to think. Do you think that India should also pay respect to Jinnah for his contribution to Indian nationalist struggle? Why did he turn communal? Was he responsible for the partition of India? We will try to answer all these questions. Not just about Jinnah, I will also talk about that the reasons for which he shifted communal, the reasons for Jinnah's communalism. There are 2 theories actually about it, so we will discuss those theories, and obviously Pakistanis do deny that. And then we'll also talk about that how Hindu communalism contributed to this whole pattern of things. We'll do that, right? And then ultimately we'll answer that who was responsible for the partition of the country, whom to blame on. And then we'll also talk about this, that was Congress of that time responsible for the partition of the country. All this I will be doing, but I will need to do this in the next lecture because time is already up for this one. Right now, one last thing is that I have done my share of the duty, and have you done yours? And that is, have you shared this video with others? Because that is what drives this channel. And if you like this video, please do click on the like button. That will make us happy. And if you want these videos to come in your email box, you will need to subscribe to us, and that you can do by clicking over here on this button. So that is all, and thank you so much for watching this video.